Welcome back. It's Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Glad you guys are here, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on Spotify or all the classic podcast outlets. We're going to have a fun discussion today about where the Chiefs are going. What is it now? 10 days away from quarterbacks being in camp. Matt Derrick is here to set us straight on everything. But before we get to him, I just have to say, welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
I like getting that business out of the way quick and early. This is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing well, Ryan. How about yourself?
I'm counting down the hours. You know,
yep,
I'm ready.
We're getting there. I mean, I was thinking about it earlier. I mean, it's you're right, about 10 days till quarterbacks and the rookies start showing up, but it's closer to 2 weeks before the veterans. So
yeah,
but we're probably officially in, Tyrann Mathieu watch and all that kind of stuff. So it's almost here.
Yeah, it's enough. Like this last little push of nothingness until there's something, it's always a challenge, but I think this year, maybe more than most, it feels like the bitterness from the Super Bowl is still there. And so it's making me a little bit more anxious. I know it's making Chiefs Kingdom more anxious. How are you feeling about getting geared up for another season covering this team after what happened the last time they were on the field?
Yeah, I guess I try not to be too spoiled. I mean, come on. I mean, we could be talking about a 4-12 football team here. Yeah. And see, the things that I've seen in my life, I mean, knock on wood, I have never covered a Chiefs team for Chiefs Digest that didn't win an AFC West championship. See, so to me,
I think you're the good luck charm.
I've been telling the Chiefs public relations department for years that I am the good luck charm because I'm the only one that can say that every Chiefs team they've covered has won the AFC West.
Right.
So I'm in pretty exclusive company right there. I don't have Tyler Palco on my resume.
No. I think Adam and Herbie can probably just take a step back here for a second because they've been through some things.
Oh, and if you have not seen what Herbie Teope's record is, what Patrick Mahomes' record is when Herbie Teope is in the building and not in the building, let's just say Patrick Mahomes is a much better player when Herbie's in somewhere else.
Herbie, if you hear this, apologies or not. But I think it all goes into, especially if you've been in Herbie's shoes or Adam's shoes or someone who's been here for a very long time, someone not as lucky as you. I think it makes like the last bitterness of that Super Bowl a little bit more. Hey, it's the end of the world. They lost, but it was the Super Bowl. The last game of the season didn't end in, hey, you got 6 wins. So moving forward, I think while maybe some of the fandom, especially younger fans that are, new to the Andy Reid era, at least, are a little bit more spoiled. Like in perspective, this is a chance to start a run at a third Super Bowl. Like, how do you take that as over the course of what this franchise has been through?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, what the kind of tone of the coaching staff and the players is once they get to St. Joe and we start to hear from them because really during this off season, when talking to the players about that Super Bowl and about what their mentality is, for this season, I mean, obviously our last year, everything was run it back. I mean, that was the motto for everybody, fans, players, coaches, Clark Hunt, everybody was, let's run it back. And that was kind of the carrot that Andy Reid was holding out there to these guys was, hey, you know what, if you want to be great, the only way you can do that and be in that conversation is to do it again. And that's what drove them last year. I mean, this year, it's almost back to square one is the phrase that you hear a lot from these players. And I'm curious to see, if that continues or there's a different message that Andy Reid, tries to impart to this team once they hit the field again, because, we've heard from a lot. I mean, you heard, Travis Kelce last week talking about the bitter aftertaste of that and being embarrassed. That's a common feeling throughout this team is that they did not like the way that season finished. They didn't like the effort that they put out there in the biggest game of the year. And they're not running back anything this year. But, it's not entirely square one. I mean, they're going to build on everything that they've done offensively and defensively the last couple of seasons. But the message, at least, that this team was getting hammered away with during the offseason was they haven't accomplished anything. Going to the Super Bowl and losing is not winning. It's not an accomplishment. That's their mentality. And that's not a run it back mentality. It's basically a rebuild it and get back there mentality.
Mm-hmm. An old coach that I admire quite a bit used to say that as soon as you lose your last game of the season, you are nothing again, and you are the next version of what you're going to be come the next season. And that feels like that message is sinking in. I'm glad you went to Travis, because that's where I was going to go too. His comments, together with Tyreek Hill's as well, it seems like the leadership here, while Patrick Mahomes being self-deprecating about this whole Jordan James thing that people are trying to make happen, it feels like the stars at least are leading from the front, keeping things focused, trying to keep the team humble, and realize that if this all goes according to plan, we have another 20 games we got to go play and win the vast majority of them.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when I got a chance to talk to some of the players at Tyreek Hill's charity game. That they know how much work that they've put in the last couple of years, and I think the coaches realize that too. And honestly, I even go back to the 2020 season was brutal for everybody. Talking to even some people in the front office, you were like, we haven't had a vacation in almost 2 years, because last year nobody was going anywhere. A lot of people who would normally, in the front office, coaches, players, a lot of people who might have left Kansas City and gone elsewhere or hit a beach or anything like that to relax, they didn't get to do that last year. And some of them stayed in Kansas City and, worked the entire time, whether it was in their home offices or, once they were able to get back into the building. And this year, the players seem to be taking a lot more time for themselves. And I think they realize, and the coaches, I think Andy Reid definitely told them that they need to take a little bit of that time to recharge and relax, because, I went back to look at it. The Chiefs have played 2 more games, obviously, than anybody else in the league. There's a few other teams that have played. The Chiefs played 38 games in the last 2 seasons. There's a handful of others that played 36. I think the Bills, I think, may have been right up there with the Chiefs, because they had to play a couple of wild card games and everything. Mm-hmm. But then it's not only on top of that; it's that the Chiefs, played 2 weeks longer each of these seasons than anybody else. That's 4 weeks. That's an entire month of practices that you're putting on the rest of the league, and that takes a toll on the body. So I think to a degree there was a little bit of the message for this offseason was, hey guys, take some time away, work on yourselves, rest your bodies, come back in good shape, and realize that once we get to OTAs, once we get to training camp, it's going to be starting all over again. Because once again, there was 1 winner last year and 31 losers.
And that's the way that it comes out, whether you like it or not. That's got to be your mentality, and how they adapt to that, I think, is going to be very interesting. We're going to get into that on the backside of this break from one of our friends and sponsors. And BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to make all your sports action bets. Baseball season through the roof, NBA, NHL, obviously football, even UFC and MMA. Before the next contest, go to BetOnline on your laptop or your mobile device and check out all the sporting news, the odds, the bonuses, everything you need to place your action. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. It's your chance to get in the game as teams prep for their runs at playoffs or even a brand new season. Head over to the website, use your device, and check it out today. You'll receive a 50% bonus on your deposit. That's 50% on top of what you deposit at betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts, and use the promo code LOCKEDON. Let them know that we sent you over there. So you teased it earlier. It is about the longevity of this. And I'm guessing somewhere, when we get the 53 man, I'm guessing there's going to be 30 plus players that have been on this roster for the last 3 seasons. Does that jive to you? Like, they're going to be tired.
Yeah. There'll still be a core group of this team that, has been to 2 Super Bowls and has got a couple of got at least 1 ring. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. There's still going to be that group, and that they've been through a lot together. And that's going to be the group that leads them, because, I think that's one of the interesting things that you especially heard from some of the rookies. I think Creed Humphrey hit it pretty hard, coming in, was that, there's a message that when you get to this team, that good's not necessarily good enough. What you did before, what you did in college and everything, it's nothing, because the expectations in Kansas City are sky high. I mean, that's just the bar's high. So when you've got that group that has been together the last 2 seasons, that's what they're imparting on those 20 odd players that are going to be new to this squad this year is, you know what? Well, one, you haven't done anything, so you need to, work hard to, get where we are. But 2, that's the expectation here. The expectation is a Super Bowl, and if you don't win a Super Bowl, you failed.
And when it comes down to that, you have to have, not only do you have to have the 53 guys going in the same direction pretty much all the time, but as it wears down, it becomes, I think, more difficult. For me, I'm interested to see what the hangover effect, quote unquote, not from the loss, but from the grueling nature of back-to-back Super Bowls is one thing. Back-to-back Super Bowls where you're quarantined most of the year, not able to have an off season, and then all this daily grind that they went through in 2020. What does that do to your veterans? We hinted at Tyrann Mathieu. We're on watch, right? It could happen. We don't know. But what does that do to those guys that have all those miles on their wheels already? How do they try to adjust? Maybe in this time here, the last month before camp, but maybe once the season gets rolling too, how do those guys try to brace themselves for the longevity that they need?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question because, again, too, you're not talking about a longer NFL season, and maybe one game doesn't seem like that big of a deal to us, but if Super Bowl champion might play 21 games and then add on 3 exhibition games, you might play 24 games this year. It's a lot of football games.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be, even more so than usual, for a team that wants to win a Super Bowl, it is going to be slow and steady wins the race. And, and that's something that's going to be interesting to me because, this is a Chiefs team that, historically under Andy Reid has always come out of the blocks pretty hard. And, maybe one of the knocks early on, until they finally get the Super Bowl is that, hey, you come out strong early, but you got to save something a little for the end. Well, now it's even more important. You've got to save even more now for the end. And I think that a lot of is that exactly what we're talking about right now. I mean, it's about managing how you manage the off season before you hit the ground.
I think that's going to be important. So knowing all that, knowing what you have to go through to get prepared, reps for veterans may be a little bit harder to really push through, to grind through a season. So for me, given everything that we see in the last week or two, there's the question of, do you need to get to the point where you bring in some new talent to try to supplement, especially if you have anybody like a Tyrann Mathieu that's getting up there in age, like anybody that you feel you want to kind of protect for the postseason run, right? Do you think that they could augment, particularly the defense at either defensive end or in the secondary, to try to limit some reps and push through all the ways what you said could be 24 games?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting how the coaching staff really does tackle this training camp and the 3 preseason games and how they do split up the workload and how they get it done. I mean, especially the fact that that 3rd preseason game is going to be a couple of weeks before the season starts. Is there a little bit of reverse psychology on this? I mean, we're totally trained to think, okay, well, last preseason game is for the scrubs, and that's when the bottom of the roster guys get their chance to put a resume film together. I mean, does that change the equation now? I mean, do you want to get maybe some of those guys work earlier so that the vets get their work later, so it's closer to when they're going to need to go? Because I mean, if you play that second preseason game and you don't play again until week 1. That's a long gap. I mean, to the point where, it's almost like that preseason game preseason work doesn't mean anything. You're going to have all that rust back on again. So I'm really curious to see how teams do manage that. But you're right. I mean, hey, the Chiefs have their 90-man roster, and I think that they feel like they're in pretty good shape as far as how they can manage some workloads. I mean, they do have a lot of veterans who, one, probably need a little bit of rest this time of year. But, 2, I mean, they've got enough changes, especially, in certain places on the ball, that they need to get some guys to work together. And, and a guy like Chris Jones, for example, I mean, Chris is going to be working a lot on defensive end and edge rusher. I mean, he's probably going to need as many reps as he needs. And you've got some other spots. You got some rookies, who need as many, reps as they can possibly get their hands on. So, yeah, I mean, could you see a less of a workload for a guy like Anthony Hitchens in favor of making sure that Nick Bolton and Willie Gay get the reps that they need right now because Hitch doesn't need that work? I could definitely see that. We'll see how they manage it. I mean, that's not something that Andy Reid has typically done. I mean, typically he is hey, the starters need the most work. They're the ones that are going to get the most reps, and everybody else has got to earn it. But yeah, could this be a little bit different this year? Yeah, I think it could be.
I'm really interested to see how that comes. I think maybe we'll follow up with that later in the week. I want to get to the specifics of one player and the ripple effect that he's going to cause right after we get back from this. And I want to tell you about our friends and sponsors, rockauto.com, where they can save you not only money, but time. And time might be the more important because it takes time to go to a store and find out what they have in stock, see if it fits your make, model, car, truck, whatever it is. You can go to rockauto.com and save both time and money. It's important. Why choose to spend 50 or 100% more plus lose time when you go to a physical store? You can go to rockauto.com and get it all at one time. Rock Auto is a family business, and they've been doing this for 20 years. They make things easy, and their prices are reliably low, and they're for everybody, whether it's a professional or a keep it up, your do-it-yourself kind of guy like me. My truck keeps running because of things like rockauto.com. I want you to check that out because they have everything from brake parts all the way up to air filters and everything else that you may need for your car or truck. Go there, explore their website, check it out. I think you guys will really enjoy it. And at the end of the day, it's about saving you that time and money. So rockauto.com right now, get the parts that are available for your car. Right in Locked On when they have that little "How did you hear about us?" box, and let them know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. We got to tell you about our pals at Built Bar. And you've heard us talk about them before, and we just can't stop because we enjoy them so much. Whether it was the special flavors like the coconut brownie chunk or the grasshopper cookie, like there are a number of things that make them very unique, that they make their bars for their customers. And at the end of the day, they're all nutritious in terms of right around 130 to 180 calories is the range, all with 17 or 18 grams of protein in one bar. And low sugar, low net carbs, like 5 grams of sugar on the average. And it comes in handy when you're trying to fulfill your workout regimen, whatever diet plan you're on, whatever you're trying to do nutritionally, Built Bar can help you there. And at the end of the day, they taste great. And that's what it comes down to with all their flavors, whether it's the coconut chunk brownie, whether they're standard flavors like salted caramel, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. Mint brownie is one of my favorites. There's a lot out there. I think you'll find something that you can enjoy today. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off of your next order. Use that promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your next order at built.com. So we mention it, and now with everything that we've seen the last week or two, there's a lot of questions about availability of the defensive end spot and whether they have to bring somebody in. The cap's a little bit tight right now. So that brings us back to the thing that we're on watch for in Tyrann Mathieu. Do you think that the events of the last week have made it a little bit more pressing? And certainly, how do you feel about where Tyrann sits with some of the other safeties that are looking to get signed as well, including Jamal Adams, who I think is probably going to break the bank no matter whether he signs before or after Tyrann Mathieu? Where do you think that the team and the player are right now?
Yeah, I mean, with Tyrann Mathieu, I mean, it doesn't seem like there has been any movement at this point. I mean, there certainly could be some discussions behind the scene that we're certainly not privy to, but, you're typically getting in right now, after that 4th of July holiday, when everybody, at least in the front offices, starts to kind of drift back into work. And this is when you could possibly see, some movement on some negotiations, some calls being made. I mean, this was obviously time frame last year when you saw the Mahomes deal get done. You saw the Chris Jones deal get done. So I still think close to 50% or better that something gets done with Tyrann Mathieu before the veterans hit the field on, the 27th, 28th. So, we still got a couple of weeks before we get to that point, for sure to see, if a deal gets done. But even then, I mean, extensions can really still get done up until week 1 and beyond. I mean, I still am under the feeling that if it doesn't get done by week 1, that it's probably at that point a reset and there won't be much activity until after the season. But at this point, I mean, all indications are that both sides want to get something done. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the structure of a deal that does get done between Mathieu and the Chiefs is going to be interesting because I could see it being anywhere from a 3 to a 6 year deal. But it's really going to be the money in the first 3 years and how the Chiefs are able to roll it over, say, 4 or 5 years, and how that works. Because, I fully expect that Tyrann Mathieu is going to want $50 to $60 million guaranteed over 3 seasons. And how they get that to him, get it done with one, freeing up some cap space this year, while also kind of navigating the cap hits that they've got over the next couple of seasons. I mean, they've got to make both those things work. But if they can, I mean, that's certainly what they want, is to get a little bit more cap relief for this year, because they've got enough space right now going into the season. I mean, I think they're sitting about 8 and change. That's enough. I mean, that's enough for Brett Veach. And he would be comfortable in that range right now going into the season.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it, because you're not talking about making a big addition if you're at $8 million in cap space. If you want, and you're going to want to add somebody that's making $3 or $4 million a season, then yeah, you're going to need more room. So that's why the Mathieu deal would have to get done if the Chiefs are going to do anything above and beyond just simply, building a practice squad and filling out, the roster when you have guys hit injured reserve. If they want to make any moves, they need some space.
And that's where it becomes, I think, critical to, we'll see the diamonds or the cards fall. Let's put it that way. See the cards fall when they do, because I think it's going to be a domino effect. Right now, it almost seems to me like this might be a team that is going to wait everything out. I mean, get the Mathieu deal done when they get it done. Again, early camp is my guess. But then with the lack of a guaranteed contract for a veteran signing, that doesn't happen until after week 1. It seems like if there's anything going to be done, either a cornerback that becomes available, an edge rusher to help supplement what you may or may not have this season. It seems like post week 1 is really the sweet spot for Brett Veach this particular year. I know it's not something he typically does, but did you see that scenario working out?
Yeah, I do. And I think that's, one, you haven't seen any moves at this point. And I think that's probably one of 2 reasons for that. I mean, it's either simply that the Chiefs do not feel that there's anybody out there in free agency that can significantly upgrade their roster, or 2, they're just way apart on terms and the players out there are a little bit more expensive. If there's a player out there that the Chiefs like, but let's say it is Melvin Ingram. I've got no reason to believe that it is, but it could be. If that's the case, then yeah, I mean, you get around to week 1, price is going to keep dropping. I mean, that's just the way it is with free agents. As the weeks go on, they're going to get cheaper towards the season. But I think this team is going to be a lot more interested in, maybe making a move with another squad. I mean, you look at what, Brett Veach is typically like to do this time of season. Once you get to mid-July and you get to the beginning of training camp, yeah, there's some veterans that get cut by other teams that do come in, especially on that week, right during the cut down. And that's when, teams start to move their veterans. I mean, that's when like a LaShawn McCoy comes in. I mean, that's kind of a patented Brett Veach move. But another one is, looking for players that have kind of lost their way with other teams that you can make some deals with, or, some young players that you can, make a move with your depth for their depth pieces. So those are the moves that I think are much more likely at this point that, Brett Veach is going to be interested in, is waiting to see what happens at the waiver wire, seeing if there's any big names out there that are going to be available right before the season. Or, there's some players out there that, just need a change of scenery, and he thinks that he can make a hit there. I mean, that's where I think Brett Veach is going to be shopping for the next probably 5 to 6 weeks.
And before Chiefs Kingdom goes hog wild right there, let me ask you point blank, are you insinuating that N'Keal Harry is about to become a Chief before the regular season?
I would not insinuate that. No. I no insight here, but I see N'Keal Harry not being a great fit for this team.
I agree.
That's probably a whole other conversation.
Yeah, they're not changing this offense for one player, right? We're not chucking up the 50-50 ball all of a sudden, I don't think. So, okay, I just wanted to get that on the record before everybody started adding me that, hey, Matt just said it's happening. Okay.
No, do not. No.
Folks, at Matt Derrick is where you can at him himself and make that claim. But Matt, thanks for the time today.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care, buddy.
Folks, we appreciate your time listening to us. Make sure that you sub over on YouTube and check all the regular podcast hangouts. Thanks for listening today. We'll talk to you next time.